Good afternoon. We are very pleased today to be joined by some very special guests of Norfolk State University. We are a great institution with a great legacy, and we have about to announce now a major addition to our collection here at the university. And so I'd like to begin by introducing our guest, Ms. Jeannie Matusame Ash, who is our benefactor today, and she will share with us in just a few minutes about this marvelous donation that she is making to our institution. Mr. Tom Tuning, who is a former rector here at Norfolk State University and also benefactor of the institution and a longtime friend of Norfolk State, and our illustrious president, our seventh president, Dr. Javon Adams Gaston, has joined us today for this wonderful announcement. And so I'd like to just kind of jump in but before we begin, I want to announce that this session is being recorded and we're going to share this through our social media outlets for the university. And so, Ms. Matusame Ash, I'd like to start with you. For those who don't know who you are, please tell us a little bit about yourself and where your love of photography came from.
Sure. Well, first of all, I just want to express my appreciation to Dr. Adams Gaston and to, to you, Clifford, and to my friend Tom Tuning for making this all possible. And I'll talk about that a little bit. It's been a project that's been a part of my life since I was in college. So to have this presentation taking place means a great deal to me and to the work that I've done with this portfolio for the last, excuse me, 40 years. So I hate to admit that, but that's about how long it is, maybe even a few extra years. But thank you so much for bringing this together and for having me on this Zoom call to give some context to the portfolio along with the gift of the portfolio as well. I think that when I thought about what is it that really influenced me to go into photography, I'd have to say that it started at home because my parents were both very involved in the arts. My father was an architect, and growing up on the south side of Chicago, that was kind of a big deal because Chicago is a city of architecture, and my mother was an interior designer. But my father still is the only African-American architect to have a building in downtown Chicago. So the influence of my parents had a lot to do with my decision, in spite of the fact that I just loved the arts as well growing up, spending a lot of time on Saturdays when I'm not in school at the Art Institute in Chicago, being influenced by the home that my father designed for us when I grew up. And architecture and photography, there are a lot of metaphors there that I grew to understand through my life. And one of the big ones is light. I mean, we think of architecture, we think of facade, but architecture also has to do with the thoughtful process of how light enters a building and how that affects how we live, how we think, how we work. And that was something I grew to appreciate, having grown up with so much light in my house. And my mother being an interior designer, you know, unfortunately, I didn't gain her talent and skills and organization, but she definitely had an influence by the art that was hanging on the walls and the books in our family library at home. So one of those books happened to be books by, or some of those books were books by Gordon Parks. And while I didn't really get involved in photography until I was about 19 years old, art was always a part of my life. And I began to see through the work of our great photographers like Gordon Parks and Roy DeCarava, that the potential of making art with photography grew on me. And so, so many decades later, I find myself still very much making photographs and using photographs as a way of telling stories. And that's something that I've always wanted to do.
I will tell you, I I'm sure that your parents are just so pleased with how you've taken those lessons and applied them. In looking at this photographic essay that you have so generously given to Norfolk State, your work is amazing. And you mentioned Gordon Parks and some other great names, but I got to tell you, Jean Matissime Ash is right there with those names. It is beautiful. It is so beautiful.
That's so nice. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's quite an honor for me, because they were my heroes, obviously.
Well, great. Well, I have no doubt that you will very quickly become a hero to our students
Mm.
once we have our formal announcement of the donation. And so I want to turn real quick to Mr. Tuning, who is no stranger to Norfolk State, and really wanted to ask you about your relationship with the university. And of course, you and Ms. Matissime Ash have a long-standing relationship. Tell us about that and how the two of you were able to meet and this connection and your recommendation to bring this wonderful work to Norfolk State. And I think you may be muted, so I want to make sure that as you begin the chat that we can hear you clearly.
Oh, thank you, Clifford. I'll start more or less. When I was growing up in Richmond, I was privileged to form a friendship with Arthur Ashe as we were teenagers. He had a big and positive influence in my life, and he left behind so many wonderful legacies, including dignity and grace. He certainly was adored all over the globe. And I was concerned when he died in 1993 that someone so special might not be remembered over time. That tends to happen. People that are not on stage at the moment tend to be forgotten as time goes on. And so I was concerned, as was my wife, Nancy, that we get involved in things that would help show his values. And so we started working on various activities, and many of them with Jeannie, who was trying to also preserve his legacy and keep it in front of a society that certainly needed to hear about his life and what he believed, which I believe we all still need quite a bit. So during the past 20 plus years, Nancy and I have developed a very strong and personal relationship with Jeannie. Jeannie is a remarkable person. The portfolio on Daufuskie Island illustrates why she's both accomplished and acclaimed as a photographer. Her pictures convey the feelings she has about the objects that she sees. Jeannie's intelligent, passionate, compassionate, sincere, and elegant. We share common values and perspectives on the major issues of our times. It's really a joy to be around her. And I think when this pandemic is over and she has the access to the campus to present her work and to interact with people, that you will find her to be a real positive light on the campus. Looking behind you now at your background at the library, I know it's beautiful. I'm sorry I haven't seen Brown Hall since it was done, but beautiful grounds, lovely people that I remember from our time at Norfolk State. Just a feeling of excitement. I might say here that when Nancy and I began to sponsor one of these portfolios, Jeannie said that we could choose an HBCU, and so I had spent 10 years before becoming a board member at Norfolk State as a board member of Virginia Union. And so I might talk to you a little bit later about why we chose Norfolk State. I'll hold that for later.
Well, we are so glad that you did choose Norfolk State, and not to disparage our friends to the north, but we're glad that this is going to be home for the Daufuskie portfolio. And so I want to talk a little bit about the portfolio itself and just the work and the amazing people who have been displayed in this work. And so, Ms. Matissime Ash, I want to ask you to tell us about Daufuskie Island and what inspired this photographic essay.
Mhm. It's kind of a loaded question with a lot of material in there, and I'm going to do my best to kind of sum it up because it actually, as I mentioned previously, began when I was in college. And I took a 6-month independent study on the west coast of Africa. And one of the places that I visited while I was in West Africa was Ghana. And in Cape Coast, Ghana, there is a castle called the Cape Coast Castle. And it's where the transatlantic slave trade actually took place. So the whole trip to West Africa was incredibly meaningful for me because it was also the very first time I had ever been able to see this country from another country's shore. And I was looking at America from a different perspective as a 19, 20-year-old. So I looked out of that porthole at the castle at Cape Coast, and all I saw was just a vast ocean. And it's moving, it's disheartening, it's disturbing, and at the same time it motivated me. It motivated me to try to understand that journey that the slaves who were captured must have been on, and more importantly, what happened when they did arrive at the shores. And we know in what happened when they arrived on America's shores, but I saw these fishing villages that were on either side of the castle at Cape Coast Castle. And I had heard about the fishing communities on the Sea Islands. And so I drew the connection back then and said, that's really someplace where I would like to go. And so fast forward to 1976, 1977, I met a woman, Verta Mae Grosvenor, who is actually a she was born in Beaufort, South Carolina. And when I met Verta, who was friends of other friends of mine, she had written a book called Vibrations Cooking. And she was very much a part of the Gullah Geechee Sea Island culture. And I had a conversation with her about my trip, and she encouraged me to go to the Sea Islands and also encouraged me specifically to go to Daufuskie Island. So I did. And in 1977, I dragged my dear husband off into a rental car. We went down to South Carolina. We flew into Charleston and got in a rental car, and we drove south on Highway 17. And we just kept making left turns on the, of course, I'm directing. Could you make the left turn here? He's driving so I can pay attention to what's going on around me and really sort of take it in. And I just kept meeting people on the road. If I saw kids or grandparents sitting on porches, people were just incredibly friendly. And my first stop was Edisto Island, which to this day, I still remain in contact and developed friendships, from the girl in the screen door to Dolly's daughter, who I photographed on Edisto Island. So I told them about my journey and what I was looking to do. And uh, I did a lot of photographing at the time. And after that journey, I actually was lucky enough to also go to St. John's Island and Wadmalaw Island. But someone had asked, it might have been Verta, suggested that I stop in to see Septima Clark. And of course, Southern hospitality being what it is, she welcomed me without an appointment to see her. And I just sat on her front porch with her for a brief period of time, not too long. She was, this was 77, 78, and she was older. She did not meet Arthur, so he was not on that particular visit with me. But it was a wealth of wonder to meet Septima Clark, and I'm still honored to this day to say that I've met her. I did not include her in the book because this was really about Daufuskie Island. But the book is actually, the portfolio is an offshoot from the book, the 25th anniversary edition of the Daufuskie Island Project, which was first published in 1982. And this 25th anniversary edition is included in the portfolio to give you a bigger sense of what exists in the entire project. The portfolio itself exists of 15 black and white photographs from that period, from 1977 up to, say, 1980, 1981. And the book houses 114 photographs from that period of time. But having had that experience, I wanted to be able to present the experience in a way that would bring people to the island, to make it experiential when you looked at the photographs. And a book is a wonder to me. It's not like looking at photographs on a screen. A book is an intimate experience. So that was my first goal, to draw this relationship between the emotional impact that being in West Africa had had in making this connection with the Sea Islands, and try to transport that in this book. And again, a lot happened in between that time, but it wasn't until maybe 3 years ago that I thought doing a portfolio, because through the years, I'm trying to stay linear with this conversation, but it's very hard because there's been such a span of time. And I get excited when I talk about how it's grown and remained a part of my life for 40 years now. But you know, the part of the legacy of that portfolio and this project is the trust that the people that are in the portfolio and in that book, that they had in me. They saw a lot of people come on and off the island, tourists, people who would snap their photos, and they'd see pictures end up in magazines and newspapers, and they had no control over that. And I wanted to do something deeper, but I had to prove myself that I had an intent that was deeper, that I hoped would be something they would be pleased with. And I think, you know, it all boiled down through the years of seeing, as the elders passed away, the legacy of the elders, and how development just completely transformed their lives, and not in a very positive way because of how they were displaced, but that I needed to stay involved. And so I was staying involved with helping a few of the legacy kids, is basically what I call them, the grandkids and the great grandkids, and in some cases, great great grandkids of the people in the project, to help with their college tuition. And I began to think about 3 years ago, you know, I'm not going to be around here forever. So I thought about this concept of doing a Daufuskie Island portfolio, and getting a special edition, which makes it only 15 will exist, and all of the 15 photographs inside of the portfolio itself are a special edition. They're printed on a 14 by 17 inch paper, which is an unusual size for a photographic print paper. And I did that so that you would know this was a part of the portfolio. And the book and the videos that are included, again, it was an attempt to really help people transport to the Gullah Geechee experience and Daufuskie Island before development, which did come in about 1982. So it was through this idea that I thought, you know, the sale of these photographs, the sale of these portfolios could go into a scholarship fund. And that was really something that I thought would far outlast me. It was a way of people being able to contribute to the lives of these legacy kids who really were at one point in their lives land rich. And they had this, you know, this beautiful island that it changed through the years, and they moved on in their lives, and to get back to the trust that I developed with the people, and it went both ways. Their grandparents and great grandparents began to understand as the island was changing, what I was doing was important. One of the prayer houses was blown over in Hurricane David, and I had photographed this prayer house. And I'm just giving you an example of one of these things. And it was in 1979. And when I went back to the island, the prayer house had been, after Hurricane David, the prayer house had been destroyed by the hurricane. And so I started photographing that. And they had always been asking me, why are you taking so many photographs of the prayer house? And I would just keep doing it, you know, not try to make it complicated. But it was at that point that I think they really began to understand the importance of documenting their island and the importance of what they had been able to maintain throughout all of these years as direct descendants of slaves, to be able to carry on a culture in a very isolated barrier sea island that had no bridge to it linking it to the mainland. So, you know, we all sort of get in our bubbles. And I think they had so nurtured themselves as a community in the bubble that, you know, change comes. And I feel very honored to have had that trust, but also to be a part of that change. And, you know, just to kind of wrap that up, it far exceeded my dreams and my vision from when I stood in Cape Coast, West Africa, thinking about what was on the other side. That 40 plus years later, because that was in 1973, 1974, it's almost 50 years. It's just one of those things that I can't impart enough to your students, that everyone should have a family documentarian, because no matter who you are and what you decide to do in your life is important. And it's important to the legacy of your family. And to have been a part of the Daufuskie Island family, photographing funerals and weddings and this trust, you know, I didn't grow up there. I think this is very important. So you all have a unique opportunity to maintain a document that can be handed down through the ages. And so that's what I see in this portfolio, a piece of Daufuskie Island and its history. And it's a legacy of the island itself, and it's um, an opportunity and a legacy for the kids whose parents and grandparents are either of Gullah Geechee descent or of specifically the Daufuskie Island people and way of life. It was a great honor for me.
Wow. I tell you, that is just an amazing account. And when you look at the pieces in the portfolio, that trust, you can see it in the eyes of your subjects. Dr. J and I were talking about that earlier. It's just so vivid. And so I'd like to, Dr. J, I'm going to come to you in a second. I'd like to just take a minute and just share a little bit of the video that goes along with the portfolio, just so folks can get a sense of what we're talking about. And then we'll come back and we'll pick up our conversation, Dr. J, because I'm sure that you have some very important points that you'd like to make about this as well. So let's take a look.
Brother, right here to keep you here. Brother, right here to keep you here. I got to go beat my weary soul. Got to go beat my weary soul. Got to go beat my weary. That's why I'm here to leave you. My sister, right here to leave you here. My sister, here to leave you here. My sister, here to leave you here. I got to go beat my weary soul. I got beat my weary soul. I got beat my weary soul. That's why I'm here to leave you here. My prayers are right here to leave you here. My prayers here to leave you here. My prayers are here to leave you here. I got to go beat my weary soul. I beat my weary soul. I got to go beat my weary soul. That's why I'm here to leave you here.
What a wonderful collection. Dr. J, gosh, you may be overwhelmed the way that I am, but tell us, what is this portfolio, this donation, what does it mean for Norfolk State University and for its students?
So thank you so much, Clifford. And first, I'd like to thank Mr. Tuning, who was our former rector and our board of visitors, because that kind of commitment to this university and your willingness to share this with Norfolk State University is really an opportunity that I can't say enough about. You didn't have to do this, and we're so glad you did, because one of the things you did for me, and thank you so much to you and your wife, is you introduced me to Jeannie. And she has just been a wonderful, wonderful person to get to know. Her spirit is seen in the portraits that you look at, in the pictures, the photographs that you get to see. You see how she has a depth of spirit that connects with other people and that is able to tell a story that is so important to our world. And if you think about some of the things that are happening in our world right now and the difficulties that we're experiencing, being able to see a view of a people with such rich tradition and such rich history that comes to life because of the way that she's been able to photograph them has been just so important to this institution. It's a transformational opportunity. Here we have a photographer whose works have been in the Museum of Modern Art, in the Whitney Museum, in the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture, and in the Portrait Gallery, so many others. And I grew up in Washington, D.C., so some of these places are places I frequent often whenever I get a chance to go back. And here we will have these photographs right at Norfolk State University, not only for our students to get to experience, but for the community, for Hampton Roads to get to experience. It's really a change and a shift in the prominence and the preeminence of Norfolk State University, because the two of you really had the care, concern, and support for Norfolk State University to really change the lives of our students. When you talk about having a father that was an architect and the focus of light and light being connected so much to the photographs. I have a sister who's an African-American female architect, one of very few, as you know, in the country. She's AIA, of course, and she teaches me about light. So when you talk about that, I was like, yes, that's what she keeps trying to tell me. And she'll be very angry with me because she will say, you didn't have enough light on you when you were taking this video. So that's just, but I really, really can't tell you how much this gets Norfolk State University on the main screen, that people come to know that this is an institution that not only is on the move, but is deeply, deeply committed to our students understanding and connecting with and being aware of not only what is out there in terms of excellence. So we're bringing excellence to the campus, but also the thought that, Jeannie, you just talked about, that their lives matter and that they have a story. And this is an example of that very important part of our history at this moment. Their lives matter and that the history of their family needs to be told. So thank you both so much. This is truly, truly a gift that transforms the institution.
Thank you, Dr. J. Mr. Tuning, I was just going to ask you, you mentioned earlier about your service to other institutions. Why were you favoring Norfolk State for this particular donation?
Well, the two universities that certainly came to mind, because I've served on their boards, were Virginia Union and Norfolk State. And in some ways it was a hard decision, but ultimately pretty clear. when I walked the grounds at Norfolk State and I interacted with students and faculty and staff, over the years, about 4 years, I learned that there was something special behind that call, "Behold the green and gold." Um, I smile when I hear it because I think of the faces of the people that I've met. Their faces that were positive, that were excited, that were hopeful. I remember going to graduations and seeing parents and grandparents so delighted to see their children graduate. And I was excited too for them. Um, I've always felt that Norfolk State should be a leading university, not only in Virginia, but in the nation. I know it has tremendous skills in a lot of areas, expertise, whether it's the sciences or computers or whatever, but their cultural side is very important. And I guess I still miss the choir, but I also miss the library and the times that I spent there with people and intellectual conversation and friendship. And I really started thinking, well, on the Virginia Union side, Arthur Ashe lived blocks from that. But this is not about Arthur Ashe. This is about Jeannie Matusami Ashe. And Jeannie is a great fit with Norfolk State. She's a person, as you can see, with passion and high emotion. And I think really that's going to be very significant to her when she's on campus and to your students and faculty. I think it's going to be a bigger gift than her portfolio is her gift of presence. So I guess also Dr. Adams-Gaston has mentioned the community of Hampton Roads. Norfolk State's always shared its cultural assets and activities with the community. And it's my hope that in addition to the campus, that many people in the community will come to see this and visit this. I think Norfolk State's a gem, and I think that it needs more people to be on its campus and to feel the excitement. And so I think this is a great come on to get them there, as well as some of the other activities which I know you promote. So it really was a clear decision, even though I think some people in Richmond would be a little bit upset at me, but I know Jeannie and that's what's really important.
That's right. I tell you, this is just an amazing opportunity for Hampton Roads. And Dr. J, I know that first and foremost in your mind is always the benefit of our students. What do you expect our students to get from this collection?
I think that our students have the opportunity to really understand the power of visual arts and how they connect us and make sure that we remember, they capture moments. And as I was looking through the collection, I was really, really struck by how deeply moved one becomes and how you become a part of the community because you're looking at those photos and they're so they're structured so that you become engaged beyond yourself. You become engaged at a soul level. And I want our students to understand that that's what the visual arts can do. And it also reminds them, as I said a little bit earlier, it reminds them that they matter, and how they matter is connected to how we tell our stories. And this is one way of telling a very compelling story that changes lives. And, I talk all the time about our students getting an opportunity to travel more once COVID is over, because those kind of experiences, like you talked about, and people may ask, why am I calling Miss Matusami Ashe Jeannie? It's because she and I agreed that we would be on first name basis. So we actually have that connection. But what she's done is remind them that the world is bigger than the walls of NSU, that Hampton Roads is important to them, that they want to be connected to this community because this community is their story. And that as we have them move more and more out in terms of travel, that they have more stories that they're able to tell that help us shape the next part of our history of our country. So we become better. And when we look at, those who are gathered here today on this video, we look at there's a future and the future is bright. And though it is sometimes difficult, it is still important and it is still bright, and that they go and use this as a way to tell the story and to be a part of Hampton Roads and not separate from Hampton Roads. This is our home, and we are doing important things right here in our own home.
That is amazing. Let me thank the three of you for being what I'd like to call beacons of light in our world. So, we often have to struggle with a lot of dark things that happen, but each of you in your own special way are beacons of light for Norfolk State and for the world. And so we want to thank you all for what you're doing for our world. I want to just kind of close out by announcing that the Fusky Island Photographic Essay Collection will be housed in the Lyman Beecher Brooks Library, which is my background today. And so we're looking forward to the spring semester. Ms. Jean Matusameh Ash has agreed to come on and to serve as an artist in residence for a few days. And we will do a formal announcement, a formal dedication, if you will, of the collection and introduction to the campus. And we are so excited and so grateful for this contribution. And you have no idea that I think generations of Spartans will benefit from it. They will look at the world a little differently by what they will see in this photographic essay collection. So we want to thank each of you for participating with us. Any closing remarks that anybody would like to make before we close out?
I would, if I can just speak and say a thank you to all of you. But Tom, your commitment, and not just this commitment to Norfolk State University, but knowing you the way that I do, your commitment overall to the HBCUs, to your friends, to what you believe in is a real blessing to have. And I just want to thank you for believing in the work and how it can hopefully have an impact on young people's lives as well. So thank you. I wanted to say thank you to you and Dr. Adams-Gasson. While we did agree to call each other by our first names, I don't know if I can call you Javon anymore. I think I'm going to have to call you Dr. J.
That's great.
I really like the ring of that. That just tops all. So it's been a pleasure to get to know you. And I thank Tom again for introducing us. I mean, that's been a real wonder. And I'm so looking forward to coming down to Norfolk and meeting you and meeting the students, which I'm very excited about, and engaging about their work and the portfolio as well, if that's something they want to engage about. But talking about the visual arts would be great. And Clifford, thank you so much for moderating and for bringing me into this and giving us this opportunity today to speak to one another. So thank you.
Well, I'd have much preferred to have all this in person, but the pandemic seemed to interrupt that. Thank you, as Jeannie said, Clifford, for putting this together. I'm excited when I consider that two of my great relationships are being put together here with Jeannie and Norfolk State. And I hope that when she's an artist in residence, that the pandemic will allow me to swing by and say hello to everybody. And I just cherish the moments that I had on that campus. But I am so happy that of the contributions that Nancy and I might have made to the university in the past. I think this is by far the greatest impact that we can have, and hopefully the students will see it and catch it, and it'll be a bright day for Norfolk State when people do see it. So thanks again. Thank you, Dr. J. Best wishes.
Thank you all. Clifford, we really appreciate the work that you've done and your team has done to get this here. And we're so excited for what this will do for not only our students, but the community, and then for the Commonwealth of Virginia. I think this makes this a destination for people to come from all over the Commonwealth and all over the country, because this is such an important opportunity for everyone. I am humbled by what we have been given here at Norfolk State University. I want to thank you, Tom. I really want you to know how important this is to our institution. And I especially want to thank you, Jeannie. I want to thank you for caring about a community, making sure that people get to know that community, being able to make that community come to life for us, and for helping students, young people, people who will come to visit the exhibit, understand that we can make a change in the world. Thank you so very much for being that light.
That is wonderful. And to our viewers, we want to ask you to stay tuned. We have a wonderful artist in residence coming. As soon as the pandemic moves out, we want to introduce you to Daufuskie Island, a photographic essay collection now at Norfolk State University. And so with that, Mr. Tuning, I'm going to do this one in honor of you and your comments. And Dr. J probably knows where I'm going already with this, but we will end with, behold.
Oh,
The green and gold.